evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Brock Beard from LastCar.info, and welcome to Behind the Wall, the post-race show that comes on after the race. We're unofficially pending the results of post-race inspection in that frigid garage area outside the Bowman Gray Stadium. Ryan Preece has pulled off his first win in an exhibition race, not in a points-paying race, still looking for his first win of his career. But as we saw in the post-race interview, a very emotional, very thankful Ryan Preece for what he has experienced in his career to this point. Congratulations to him. Joining an exclusive list is brought up in the closing stages of the Fox broadcast on FS2 after the race was moved over there. Joining the likes of Denny Hamlin and Jeff Gordon, being drivers that won the Clash before they won a points-paying race. Of course, both those drivers did go on to win a points-paying race very shortly after and have become two of the winningest drivers in recent memory of the sport. Certainly Hamlin among the recent crop here. So a tremendous accomplishment. Yes, at Bowman Gray as opposed to Daytona. And yes, there is a lot to be said about this race and its future, and certainly what its present, honestly, with what happened here as well. But right from the beginning, I don't want any of this to take away from Preece's victory. Just a tremendous accomplishment that he had out there. And it was wonderful that Regan Smith let that emotion be seen, and also really the producers at Fox. As much as I think this broadcast had a lot of problems, a lot of the same problems that Fox has been known for, I like that at least you could hear just the natural audio of him talking with his team and kind of getting that moment. When is the last time we've seen from any of these networks that they just let a moment breathe here? I really enjoyed that. So whoever's decision that was, I'm glad that happened, and maybe that'll be something we'll see more in the future, not to mention it being a victory lane interview. I mean, obviously Bowman Gray victory lane is a different setup, but still, I thought it was a great moment there for him. So I'm very happy for Ryan Preece. We were at Talladega last year when he was so close to winning that race there with the side-by-side finish there with Austin Cindric. I think back to the interview I attempted with him at Sears Point when he was disqualified from, a race win that he had in his hands for the K&N West race, came back a couple of years later and got that one back. This is a driver that cares very deeply about it, and also a driver that came up through a more traditional sense in the sport, from the short tracks, from the modified ranks, trying to pull together whatever sponsorship he could, first with the Joe Gibbs Racing development deal, and then, whatever ride he could get. It wasn't too long ago, it seems like. We were talking about him driving for JTG and him having that great run in the Daytona 500 where he avoided pretty much all the big wrecks of the day and, had a decent finish out there. And it's been a difficult path for him. I mean, he had the JTG ride for a number of years. Things didn't turn out there. Getting the deal with Stewart-Haas right before they closed. And, I thought that was very reminiscent of seeing like Lake Speed's interview at Daytona in 1985 or Rich Bickles at Martinsville in 1998. Drivers who, for almost a decade, were in the sport, and then at one point felt like maybe they weren't going to be in the sport much longer. And, we heard as much from Preece there in his interview, and, really a really interesting, moment there for sure. So, kudos to him, to the 60 team. As I pointed out on social media just a minute ago, the number 60 has not won a points-paying race since NASCAR's second season. 1950 with Bill Rexford at Canfield. It has been that many years since that number has gone to victory lane. I always think the car numbers are that wonderful link to the past, to the present. And with this win in his back pocket, coming back to Daytona, potentially for some retribution after that scary flip that he had in the 500 last season, maybe that'll be a good way for things to turn around for him this season. So first and foremost, congratulations to Ryan Preece on that. Again, unofficially, pending the results of post-race inspection. We'll see what the story is there as well. Now, separate and apart from this is everything else. I'm honestly pretty exhausted after that one, and I'm sure I'm not the only one. I'm sensing that from some of these comments here coming in. Thank you for tuning in, of course, to the show tonight. Been trying some different things with the setup here a little bit. As a matter of fact, I brought my I just happened to bring out this Ryan Preece shirt because I thought it would go good with this flannel. I didn't count on that certainly for today, and I actually picked Ryan Blaney to win the race, so that was a different deal. But certainly an exhausting afternoon. I mean, my goodness. I think and after what's been, really an exhausting off season, different degrees of such things, I got to say, this has probably been the first off season I can remember in years. I can't even think, even compared to like 2000, 2001, or, something like that, or 93, 94, where there's just been so much that's been going on in the sport, and so much of it being just just a tremendously emotional experience. I mean, from ever since Denny Hamlin, ever since that caution came out with 5 laps to go at Phoenix last November, when we were covering the races out there. Then, of course, what happened with Denny's father and the house fire, the tragedy that occurred with the Biffles, the loss of Michael Lynette, Helen Marcus, Dave Marcus's wife, passed away. The lawsuits, not to mention that happening at the same time, resignation of Steve Phelps, the developments that have occurred since then in bringing back the chase, getting rid of the playoffs. There's just been so much that's been going on in the sport here. And all the while, one of the storylines that had been from last year was really no weather delays all the way through Phoenix during the 2025 season. And then what happens? We get to the beginning of this year, and then we get a record-breaking snowstorm. Not unprecedented, but certainly had been a while, at least from what I'm hearing from all the information that was given here, to have that much snow in the area right during this weekend. The race was originally going to be scheduled back on Sunday, but it was clear in the days leading into that was not going to happen. But pushing it first to Monday and then to today. Again, another thing that has to be said right off the bat here too is kudos to NASCAR and to the people that were organizing this event, and to the community members that came out, that were shoveling the stands out, and the drivers themselves that were participating in that too. It took so much for this race to even see the light of day today. And there was so much effort in there. And yes, I think in some cases that was a bit ambitious. First, from the schedule, from having the race be this early in the year. Obviously with the Super Bowl, there was constraints to that. You still have the Daytona 500 on President's Day weekend. They weren't going to schedule this in Daytona, having this still be kind of its standalone event, because we just did the Clash at Bowman Gray for the first time last year. And, it was more or less a success. I think it was definitely better than what we saw in Los Angeles. But the effort that was taken, I think it was very ambitious to have it at that time of the year. And it was also very ambitious to try to squeeze it in on Sunday, knowing that the forecast on Saturday was pretty clear at that point. It seemed like there was less and less ambiguity about it. But there was so much work that was done to put this event on. And I want to give a shout out to anybody that was involved in that. That was tremendous. And usually I scoff at, especially the things where the broadcast brings up and says, oh, our broadcast crew has been out here like 11 days. Yeah, they definitely got their, deserve their kudos for this, because this was no easy task. I mean, the cold temperatures and everything. Oh my goodness. And thankfully it's such a small track that they could clear it out. But even then, I mean, you still got snow melt coming out from beneath the barriers and everything. There was so much that was stacked up against this event. And that's even before it started. This is not even talking about the weather that rolled through midway through, that turned this race completely on its head and turned into a game of red light, green light, and stretched it well past the distance that it was going to be. Unfortunately, it had to get moved from Fox to FS2 as a result because of the Masked Singer. I don't know, but that's the problem with big Fox, or big network television. They're going to push forward, their shows like that at the same time against live sports. And NASCAR doesn't have quite the NFL flexibility there to push things like that aside. But it was there was a lot of effort taken there behind the scenes, and I do want to respect that, because it was impressive. And this was probably about the biggest challenge that the sports had to undertake in terms of weather in a long time. They showed those past snow races as recently as 2023 at Fontana. It's they're not that common. I mean, the rain weather is certainly much more common, even fog being more common. But in this one here, I think they really worked their tails off, and I appreciate that. That all said, at the same time, some things are just snake bit. There's been a lot of discussion in the days leading up to this race about where things have been in the past, and having the Clash be at Daytona, and how that ended a few years ago, why we are on this current track anyway, of having it first at the LA Coliseum and now here at Bowman Gray. We're hearing now, of course, from some of the revelations that have come out because of the lawsuit, about who wanted the events where, and figuring out things like that. That could be said one way there, but the Clash is kind of a complicated history. I think it's safe to say, to think about how it started as just pole winners, being a sprint race at the very beginning of Speed Weeks, back when there was a week at least of solid events with practice and so forth, spread out there. Again, all the way through the era covered in 500 days, episode 11 coming up here very soon as well. It was a challenging, it was not really a big event. It's been added much more over the years into something that's become just kind of out of control, in this sense. It used to be 78, 79, they had like 8 different pole winners. JD McDuffie made the first one with his pole at Dover in 78, for the 79 Clash. And it was just a 20-lap race. And it was, right at the beginning of the week, before qualifying, before ARCA and all that other stuff. And it got to be kind of its own event. And it was just an appetizer. It was just a very, very brief thing. Just get a glimpse of what kind of racing you're going to see. Usually didn't have any cautions. Years later, of course, you'd have like the really, big incidents like Ricky Rudd's wreck in 84. But it usually was a very, very short race. And it was, just a bonus. And it got to be something that drivers would look forward to for winning a pole. Even Jimmy Hensley in 1989, when he drove in place of Dale Earnhardt after Hurricane Hugo caused another weather-related delay. That Hensley, of course, stepping aside for Dale Earnhardt to drive in the race because he was going for the championship, still got credit for that pole and got to start that race. And, we've seen other examples of that in the years past. Boris Said in 2003, winning a pole at Sears Point, driving in Jerry Nadeau's relief, and coming out and being able to run the what was then the Bud Shootout in 2004. But, really starting in the late 90s, you had like a last chance qualifier race for second round fastest people to fill out the field. Then you had lengthening the race itself to be like from 25 to like 70 laps. Now you got pit stops thrown in there. You got field inversions that had happened even before that in the early 90s. It's always been, this is kind of something that's just been a common track in NASCAR in general, that it's always looking for like the next big thing, next way to turn everything on its head, and let's make it even crazier and crazier. And it got to a point where, now it's going to be like all the playoff drivers and past Daytona pole winners, because they wanted to get Danica Patrick and Austin Dillon in there, and all these other things that were going on, culminating in the last couple of races there in the early 2020s, where you just had big field clearing wrecks. Like you'd have everybody run single file, nobody's going to step out of line, and it's still long enough that people are going to still be doing that, and then you'd have a big pile up. You had the one that Jimmy Johnson and Paul Menard had. You had the other one that Eric Jones won, where everybody was wadding things up. And at that point, transitioning it from there to a absurdly short track race inside a stadium doesn't seem like that big of a difference. If you're going to tear up a bunch of cars, it may as well be short track cars and not expensive super speedway cars. And that's how we left it. And, coming into this race, even with all the weather delays, honestly, as much as I, do get this reputation of talking about, the things in the past and saying, making it seem like there's not anything that's current that's good. I've not really seen eye to eye with, bringing the Clash back to Daytona. It would be nice, I suppose. I think bringing back Speed Weeks, if it's a means towards that, I'd be more open to it. And having a full week of events, having more practice sessions, treating the Daytona 500 as big and exclusive as it should. We're certainly a step getting that direction rather than just having qualifying start the week without having a pre-qualifying practice or anything. At least we're getting some practice there. I'd be open to that in that sense, but just for the sake of it being in Daytona, I'm really not that wedded to it. When it became a crash fest those last couple of years, I think and the way that, much like the playoffs, it had all these other things bolted onto it. It really kind of became kind of its own thing. And I think that would fit in a standalone weekend. And in 2022, we covered the Clash in LA in person. Kind of felt the same way that, kind of coming into it, treating it like it's its own thing, letting it kind of, evolve into its own thing in that sense. I think that's fine, but, and maybe that's the solution to this. Maybe that's, where we could look at this too, having the event be closer to speed weeks rather than try to have this off week between the Super Bowl, forcing it to be earlier in the year, forcing it to be, in a time where you're going to have serious weather. It's hard to say because on the other side of this, I think a lot of what happened here, much like the last race in LA, you may recall, which was also affected by unusually bad weather. It just happens, and it could happen if it was during speed weeks or not. The era of Bill France weather in the Daytona 500 is thoroughly over, because the Daytona 500 itself has been known for having just terrible weather every year and long rain delays and, big wrecks and so forth. And that's kind of its own issue there too. And, depending on what the NFL does, maybe that's the direction things go there too. Again, I as much as I like bringing things back from the past, I'm not entirely willing to do that here. I think I'm okay with the Clash still kind of being its own thing and separating itself off into some other deal there. I think it'd be nice if it were still more exclusive, if it still had something to do with poll winners, and it got to be a chance for them to feature their skills. And I think that's where it worked the best in Daytona. I don't know if we'll get back to that. I mean, I certainly don't see them going to Bowman Gray Stadium just to see, 8 or 9 drivers, or however many different pole winners compete in a race of any substantial length. Even tonight, even for how many cautions that it's had, but maybe not with this car, maybe not with fields of that size. So that's the tricky part. So I think if it does become something with the pole winners again, it probably is going to end up back at Daytona. And in that case, it should be at the beginning of, the week in that sense. But if the Clash branding is already kind of so divorced from that it's just irreparably become some exhibition race that, okay, we're using this as kind of just getting a taste of what the season's going to be like at a really crazy race, which can't really serve as a points paying race for A, B, and C, for being a really small track, for not having a pit road, for whatever, but still being able to feature the track. I'm kind of okay with that, honestly. So I'm kind of hopping around a bit on this, but that's kind of where I am. I'm not entirely willing to let go of this event. First of all, it's so early. I mean, we've only had it like this couple of times. And second of all, the Clash of Daytona became kind of a, 3-headed monster of its own, with a lot of single file racing and then a lot of big wrecks and not much racing that's involved. Now again, I could see people having the same argument about this Clash here. Certainly tonight with the sleet that came down, blowing the track off, and having everybody to the point where they're running out of gas because they've run so many caution laps that, that didn't count. Maybe that would be something that's going to get revisited in the short term here, is actually having the caution laps count. I saw somebody on social media mention, I liked this one, about having the caution laps count until like the last 20 laps. You could still potentially have the thing be just complete chaos, but again, it's an exhibition race. It doesn't really need to be that sense. But I think that they want close racing. They want a real good sample of this and something to build from there. So again, it's tricky to figure out. I'm not going to pretend to know what the best solution is. But again, I'm not also going to be one of those, things where it's like, oh yeah, this is ruined. This isn't going to work. We got to go back to Daytona. I'm not entirely willing to do that yet. I'm really not. Again, maybe this just becomes its whole different branding, and, I don't know, maybe just have this take the place of the All-Star race. Like, have the All-Star race be at Bowman Gray, put it in the summer, put it in May, have it still be near Charlotte, which is fine. And just have it be there. And then you don't have to worry about the weather as much, hopefully. Although, of course, we've seen races, the All-Star race, be affected by weather. We've seen everything be affected by the weather. The Dover thing, I don't know, how much, legs that's going to have. I'm not really happy about them moving away from having a points paying race there. Yes, we're still having the trucks and the O'Reilly series, but not having the Cup series there. I'm not really sold on that either. But maybe that would be it, is, maybe this has become, it's created such a reputation that is separate from the Clash branding, that, yeah, you would just have this take place at the All-Star race. Although I think the All-Star races itself kind of played out perfectly, and maybe that's a discussion that we should have too. Is like, yeah, these exhibition races, what purpose do they serve? Is it, if the Clash used to be this appetizer at the beginning of Daytona, where it was at Daytona and it kind of got you ready for the week, and now it's not at the track, and it's this thing where everybody's involved in it, and it's not exclusive, and it's not short, and if it's also at a time where potentially, yeah, you could have some serious weather issues. Is that the best place it could be? So again, I felt just as strongly about Atlanta being the All-Star race, because I think it's kind of become, something that is very separate from it, any kind of like professional racecraft in it. I've never been a big fan of the Atlanta track or Echo Park Speedway or whatever. And I still feel like it's become such a circus that it would make a better venue for an all-star race with a bunch of short segments and so forth. And I see the Clash having similar elements to that, because of course this is never going to be a points paying race. And nobody's going to pay money to see it be 25 laps with 8 cars in the field. So that's not going to work. Again, I don't know what the best solution is. Maybe have a season where you create a new tradition, have a couple of exhibition races, have one at Atlanta, have one at Bowman Gray or something like that, and have both of them in the summer, or maybe you have like one start the Amazon schedule, one start the TNT schedule or something like that. I don't know. I personally, to me, I think that a really good exhibition race would be something where, again, the venue itself is special. And in that sense, Bowman Gray has the edge over certainly Dover and even, Atlanta, if that were ever considered in that sense. It does become much more about the track than anything. And then if that's really the case, you can really schedule it anywhere. It doesn't have to be at the beginning of the year. We can just start things off at Daytona and just do that, I don't know, have a race on the beach for all I care at that point. Who knows? But that's kind of the direction I'm looking at there. So I'm still grappling with this, as you can tell. And that's something to kind of figure out there. But again, I'm not strongly in the sense that we need to go back to Daytona after this, because I do think that a lot of this was just an unfortunate circumstances. It was made more likely from how early in the year it was. Actually, I'm honestly, for me personally, and I can't help but be biased here, I'm glad this race wasn't on the first, because that was my mom's birthday. So, it was, probably not, on that, but I'm sure if there was any way that they could have got that race in that day, they were certainly pushing for it, and they surely should have. So, my own personal thing is nothing to do with that, but, yeah, again, I think it's something to look at. So I'm going to step away for just a moment. I need to get the air conditioning on here. It's a little bit warm in here. And then we'll get into more about the race itself. We haven't talked about the last place battle yet, which itself became a bit of a story in this race. And I got some show and tell here and some trivia questions. So we'll do a little bit of a show here tonight, and we'll be back for that in a moment. So I'm going to step away in just a moment here, and just stay tuned and we'll get back into it. Alrighty, let me make sure I get this a little adjusted here. Trying something with just how this show looks here a little bit. Playing around with this a little bit this off season here, so bear with me. This is our new camera arm here. You see I got Mark's Let's Go Racing sign here over my shoulder, so we got that up there. I've realized it kind of, the light catches things pretty good there, so I might use that table for more things in the background. We got one of the quilts here in the background. So yeah, so let's jump into the race itself here. Absolute chaos. I mean, my goodness, if there was just, I mean, I don't know. I feel so bad for the people that put this race on, because they were working their absolute asses off to get this thing put on, through terrible weather, which I'm sure played absolute havoc with, you know, the broadcast team out there and their electronics set out there, and NASCAR and their structure out there. Thankfully, this is close at least to their headquarters, so it wasn't a long drive on top of everything else. I think that's what made the LA Clash and the end of that so difficult, was because there was that weather, and then they had to rush everything and get it in a day, and they did, you know, which unfortunately kind of overshadowed that NASCAR Mexico Series race that unfortunately just didn't get hardly any attention, but was a great precursor to the Mexico City race out there. You know, I mean, my goodness, I mean, they were trying. So first half of the, I mean, I guess we get the last chance qualifier. You know, practice and qualifying goes by. We got Kyle Larson right up there looking to pick up where he left off with the championship last year, getting that with the, again, the last minute caution over at Phoenix. Everybody else slotting in. Daniel Suarez makes the top 20 by 1,000th of a second over, over Josh Berry. Josh Berry ends up being the pole sitter of the LCQ. And that race comes and goes without any really serious incident. There's a minor incident with the spin. John Hunter Nemechek got some damage at the beginning. And one thing, this has led to kind of a surprising thing. The rigidity of this car was definitely a factor this evening, I would have to say safely. The fact that Nemechek had what looked to be pretty significant contact with the spinning car, and yet held the third place for pretty much the entire last chance qualifier until the very end of it there. When you had the battle between AJ Allmendinger and Corey LaJoie and Austin Cindric that determined the second and final transfer spot. And a great battle. Probably the best racing we had the entire night was the very end of that LCQ. The LCQ, right from its start, you know, if you think back to Eldora with the Truck Series and Norm Benning, or you think back to the first one at the LA Coliseum where Ty Dillon kind of stole the show and then ended up getting disqualified, so he didn't get to cash in for it. This was another example of it there. Great tight racing. Corey LaJoie, past Bowman Gray winner, himself very emotional in his interviews there, talking about the possibility of him not being a driver anymore. And I know some have had mixed feelings about him with, you know, his statements out there. The one he talked about the Xfinity and the Truck Series and so forth, or just his career trajectory in general. I've had my own criticisms there as well. But, you know, again, somebody trying to just make things work. And that was kind of the theme of the weekend. He gets this opportunity with Brad Keselowski. Keselowski still healing, recovering from his injury this weekend. Certainly wishing him the best after his skiing injury over this off season. We saw during the Ryan Preece interview him talking with Brad in Victory Lane. But you know, yeah, I mean, it was just a really tough battle there at the end. It was good to see. You know, and I think set the tone for what was potentially going to be kind of an interesting night when we see like how this package is going to handle with more horsepower under it. You know, given the fact that I think, again, last year's Clash didn't seem that bad, and they worked out great with Chase Elliott winning it. Maybe not the most dramatic race in history, not the most memorable. But again, it, you know, had its moments there. But yeah, Allmendinger gets in the back of Cindric, squirts him ahead of LaJoie. LaJoie ends up missing the show there, and Allmendinger does too, but it did a fine job, especially after how AJ's season ended last year with the multiple crashes there at Phoenix and all the engine problems they had all year. I'm glad to see him get somewhat of a good start. Maybe this could be something they can ride on, kind of like Nemechek and Eric Jones did after having some good runs in the Clash last year. So that remains to be seen. Certainly with Kaulig's Dodge Ram effort there in the Truck Series, there's going to be a lot of questions about that too. But again, probably the best battle of the night, I would say. I think that's probably pretty fair to say there too. But then you get into the first half of the main event, more or less, pretty clean. Seemed like it clicked by pretty. Who was struggling through a lot of that first half was Austin Cindric, who after getting into the main event, got bounced into the outside wall, had an issue with what felt like a control arm issue, but ended up being a toe link. Basically had to get that fixed at the halfway point and get him back out there. I believe he was a lap down at that point. Kyle Larson leading a lot at the beginning, then getting turned around and shuffled back in the field, and then that began a pretty difficult evening for him there at the same time. And then, you get the caution comes out. Okay, everybody's going to go in. They're going to get their cars adjusted. And then, of course, what happens? The rain pops up again. And not just rain, but freezing rain and sleet. And this poor crowd, I mean, again, they deserve an attaboy, too, for sitting through this. I mean, it was already going to be a challenge moving it to Wednesday, a Wednesday night, an average work week where the snow had just barely been cleared away. Who knows how many people would have been there on Sunday, but clearly it wasn't going to be the same size crowd as if it had been on its scheduled day. Now you got this weather rolling in there, and oh my goodness, I mean, look like Bills fans out there, the ones that were wearing their ski clothes and everything, and just weathering it as best they can. But that must have been really difficult because, of course, once that happened, the entire second half of the race turned into 3 times its distance, probably, with the sheer number of cautions we had. It seemed like every green flag run was a lap, maybe 2 laps, and it just ground to a halt there. And some drivers just having all kinds of problems, but again, nobody falling out of the event. Field stays about the same size, nobody losing more than a couple laps. Last place changes several times there. We saw at the beginning, you had Shane Van Gisbergen and Connor Zilisch were at the back of the field struggling there with some of the other drivers. Then about 3/4 of the way through the race, Van Gisbergen gets the lead. Zilisch is up there too. Unfortunately, Van Gisbergen and Zilisch get involved in another incident that basically takes them out of contention. And then up back into the mix comes Ryan Preece, who looked like he was, certainly a driver that probably shouldn't have been as overlooked in this event. He was a driver that, I know I sought out talking to him back at the LA Clash for, of course, his modified experience and how he remembered this being as much like Bowman Gray as it could be in that sense there. Unfortunately, in that case there, they didn't quite qualify for the race, but, had a more difficult stretch to do it. But again, I'd overlooked him in this one here too. I thought after the electrical issues he had driving for Stewart Haas in the LA Clash, maybe it's just too different. Maybe it can't translate as well. But who, impressively, when the weather got really bad and everybody's running on these wet track tires, and then the track's drying, and then you got a bunch of issues with that, and then everybody's running out of fuel. The fact that he weathered all that and stayed up there and pulled it off, just tremendous. But man, it made for a challenging race to watch. 17 cautions I see from the final scoring here. It shows a 1 hour time elapsed, but I'm sure it was much longer. Oh, excuse me. Allergy season coming early here in Last Car headquarters, so I apologize if I'm a little stuffed up here. But yeah, Ryan Preece pulling off the win after what was a difficult stretch there. And that's where it shook out. Ryan Preece leading 46 of the laps there over William Byron. Ryan Blaney in third, rallying back through the field after multiple incidents. Seems like I saw him like in the middle of just about every wreck out there. Him and Suarez. Suarez come back to fourth in his first run for Spire. Great deal for him. Denny Hamlin was in a lot of incidents. At one point, ramped over the back of Chase Elliott's car, still got fifth. Chase Briscoe looked really solid in this one, which is a great turnaround given the fact that he was the last place finisher in this race last year. But this time around, getting the 6th place finish. Austin Dillon. A lot of drivers in the top 10 here were really struggling through a lot of the event there. Alex Bowman in 10th was at the back of the field, got spun out and got redirected there at one point. Still getting a decent finish there behind Ross Chastain, Chris Buescher in 8th, Chastain in 9th, Austin Dillon in the 7th spot. and that being your group from there. And then a lot of drivers who, seem to have fine runs, didn't have much to show for it there. Kyle Larson led 67 of the laps, mostly in the first half, ends up back in the 16th position there. Carson Hocevar looked like he was potentially going to be the story driver winning this race before winning his first points-paying race. Came back into the 15th position there after leading 18 laps. We saw Ty Gibbs lead briefly before the first half wrapped up. He ended up in the 14th spot. Van Gisbergen led 15 laps, ended up in 20th. Again, being up front there was just about not guaranteed of anything, really, the way this race played out. Indeed, your last place finisher, Bubba Wallace, was really not in the back of the field all day. Had a couple of incidents, had some very aggressive moves there with Daniel Suarez. Had another battle with somebody else. Was it Hocevar? He had a couple of different battles out there. And I'm sure that's just what we saw with the trademark too close of a zoom that Fox uses. If they had pulled the camera back, we probably would have seen many other drivers having incidents out there. But ultimately, Bubba Wallace being on the lead lap with everybody else, last 20 laps of the race, pretty much everybody was on the lead lap. And so the spot changed a couple of times. Cindric was back there, Tyler Reddick. Kyle Busch was falling back there as well. Chase Elliott was back there getting a lap back after his incident. And ultimately, Bubba gets to last place, loses a lap to Preece in the final 2 laps, and ends up with everybody finishing under power and him in the last spot. So kind of an unusual deal with how all of that worked out. But yeah, I seen the big all caps. You have the right point there too. Yeah, exactly. I think that, we had certainly we had variety during the race. That's absolutely very true. For sure. So, yeah, again, we'll find out where things shake out from here. We got Daytona in a couple of weeks, and it'll be interesting to see where all that goes. But, I think I got more than enough racing out of a Wednesday than I possibly could have hoped for here. Although not the most competitive race, not the best racing in general. But again, I think this was just, immovable object and unstoppable force, and just seeing NASCAR and its broadcast partners and the drivers and even the carnival barker from the hot dog eating contest out there, just trying to rally against the weather as best they can and just make the best of this. And I'll be darned, they got it done. They got it in today. They didn't have to reschedule it. They didn't have to shorten it. They have to reschedule it after today, that is. But there's much to be said about it, but I can totally get where anybody that saw this race would be like, oh man, this is just too much. This is nuts. Something needs to change. I think personally, having, chewed this over here, the first part of the show, probably rescheduling this rather than, I'd hate to lose this location, this venue, because it does have such a unique history with the sport and it's a unique track. And I think it's much more conducive to these cars than the LA Coliseum was, as much as I wanted that one to be as successful as it could be, because it is also such a historic location. And it was great that NASCAR got to race there. I think, something more long-term would be like this event, but I'm seeing some interesting comments here as well. Maybe have this be at the end of the year after the season's over. Indeed, we used to have that with the Japanese exhibition races. You think about the Australian exhibition races, they'd also be like after the beginning of the year, maybe a few weeks into the season, so they didn't have to be, before the season started in late January, early February, where it's pretty much just gonna be bad weather anywhere in the Northern Hemisphere. Those are other things to consider at the same time. So yeah, it's again, not the best race I've ever seen, but at the same time, I'm not as frustrated with it as possible. This leads me into the broadcast itself, and it's something I definitely always hammer on this show, and I definitely don't want to leave it out, because there were some changes in this broadcast that do need to be mentioned. First of all, getting rid of the cartoon character pictures of the drivers. Yes, thank God. Those were just, they'd gotten so silly, and they were terrible, and they didn't look like the actual people. Ryan Blaney's in particular was awful. Denny Hamlin's was terrible. I mean, none of them were good. None of them were good. It's like, you already have these people there. You have media day to take a picture of everybody in the field that has, an entry that's invited to, participate in that. Ideally, as many people as possible. And you want to introduce these drivers to the population. We need, NASCAR needed to get out of its head that, and Fox in particular, NASCAR to a second degree, but Fox first and foremost, that not all these drivers are household names. Very few of them are. It could probably be argued that none of them are. So you can't do, the cartoon character thing doesn't work in the same way that it would with like a Michael Jordan or a Shaquille O'Neal or something like that, in the 90s. You can't do that with these guys. I think it's best to have as clear of an image of who these people are and what they look like, so that if you go to a racetrack, and hopefully these broadcasts encourage you to do so, you can recognize these drivers. Like, hey, there's BJ McLeod, there's Joey Gase, there's JJ Yeley, there's whoever. I think that's the important thing. So I'm glad they did that. That was a very positive change. Another thing, I've never been a big Clint Bowyer fan, and I've spoken endlessly about it. Just calls that are lackluster, or just hooting and hollering and just kind of doing this goofball thing there on his side. And I know that's because he's always had a very energetic personality. He wants to tap into that. But I noticed in this broadcast, and maybe it was just because of the weather, maybe it was just because of how much time it took to get this race in, but I found him much, much easier to listen to. And I felt that he stood out more than Kevin Harvick. Kevin Harvick, I don't even remember anything he said in this broadcast. I felt like I was able to tune him out. And there were a couple of things that Clint Bowyer was talking about. I didn't jot them down, but I mean, it was more or less talking about, actually the one thing where he talked about, comparing running on wet weather tracks to dirt tracks. And of course, Clint, having that extensive background in that, chimed in immediately, like how Mike Joy was saying, like, oh, you want to hang it out, you want to be sliding all over the place. And I like that Clint very clearly and not impolitely corrected that and explained it and made it interesting, and talked about how you want to make sure that the car sticks as much as possible, that you don't want a lot of spin and sliding around and all that. And that was good. I thought that was very good, and I appreciated that. So again, maybe this is a sign, maybe they get in better direction. And maybe this will be something that'll continue. I certainly hope it continues into Daytona Speed Weeks there with the duels and the Daytona 500 itself. We'll find out. But I found him to be much better this time around. Let's see, other aspects of this as well. So the cartoon characters, Clint Bowyer there as well. I'm drawing a blank on his name. I'm trying to remember it here on this. Let me get Now, I keep wanting to say Chris Rice, and of course that's not it. That's not who I'm thinking of. Josh Sims. Gosh, why did I slip that? I kept thinking Chris Rice. No, Josh Sims. I noticed that we saw this last year, I guess it was last year or the year before, where he took on a bigger role, doing kind of the Chris Myers role. I think it was at North Wilkesboro last year. And Chris Myers is out there. I mean, again, tremendous. He's always been entertaining. He's been at it for so many years. He does a great job with football. Chris Myers does. But I thought Chris Myers had really fallen off this last year or so. And it seems like by bringing Josh Sims in there, they're kind of training him to kind of fill that role. And I see that we're starting to get some turnover with some new personalities, which is something that Fox has desperately needed to do for many years now. The moves they've made have just not been enough. And I appreciate them trying it. Josh, the way he was playing off with Jamie McMurray wasn't bad. I think he's still getting his feet under him. I don't think he's there yet, Josh is. But I think he did it. He did a solid job there. He kept the discussion interesting there. And Jimmy McMurray is a really, really good and really underused commentator. And it really showed by how well McMurray was interacting with Josh there too. Again, I'd like to see Josh get some more exposure to kind of get his feet back under him. I don't think he's there yet. I was not really blown away with it. I think the role that they have him there, he doesn't have to be that spectacular or anything like that, and that's good. And he wasn't distracting. So again, I kind of talk about those different echelons there, where you have somebody that adds to the broadcast, somebody that really doesn't add or take away, or somebody that distracts from it. He certainly doesn't distract from it, so that's good. And that's not easy to do. A lot of people may think they're in these tiers and they're in that tier, and that's a problem. Josh Sims is not in that tier. He's really in that neutral level right now. He's not really adding or taking away from it. He's just kind of there, and I really do sense he's still got the training wheels on, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. You want to get people to learn, you want them to get better and all that. And, you know, again, certainly his time as a pit reporter was a good start with that. I think he was solid getting up there. So we'll see. I'll be curious to see how much of a role he has going into the regular season, if we're going to see him kind of take on more of the Chris Myers, Hollywood Hotel kind of role there. When Chris Myers started that back in 2001, he was kind of put forward as kind of the everyman, you know, just kind of the maybe a newer person that maybe wasn't as knowledgeable about the sport. I'm not presuming this about Josh, but I mean, that was kind of the character that Chris Myers had, because of course his background more in football and so forth. And we saw this in 500 Days. That was kind of the way his role was brought in. And then he kind of always had kind of that character there too. And again, I think Josh is trying to figure out, you know, I don't think he needs to be shoehorned into that character, but, you know, maybe there's something else that kind of reveals it along the way. That'll be there. So again, good start between this and the North Wilkesboro one. I think he's getting there. He's able to ask the questions. He's able to be engaging. Yeah, you know, again, I think there's a lot of adjustments that are going on. Same thing with Larry McReynolds. You noticed he was in a different position as being a pit reporter, bringing the old NASCAR on Fox jacket out, and talking to drivers out there. That was a bit of an adjustment for me personally. I'm not used to seeing him out in that sense. I'm glad he's at the track, for one thing. I hated that thing back at Daytona where he was at Daytona working with Jordan Anderson, and then he had to go back to Charlotte to remote broadcast like the ARCA race or the Xfinity race at Daytona instead of just staying there at the track. So I'm glad he's there. He's a wonderful personality. Yes, you know, again, with some of these commentators, you know, they're getting older. You try to find a good place for them. I've got nothing wrong with what they've done there. I think he was fine. I think he was solid with that. I think he fit in with the people that they had down there with Regan Smith. It seemed like it was mostly Regan and Larry McReynolds for a lot of this. If there was another one, I apologize. I don't really remember, but it seemed like they had a good rapport between the two of them there, and that worked pretty well. So, and also really, you know, for all the crazy weather we've had, of course, Larry McReynolds famously very passionate about the weather and the Weather Channel and so forth. I mean, this was a great week for him to be out, and I'm sure he's just been absolutely just enjoying how crazy the weather's been in the North Carolina region there at the same time. So it was a good choice. Whoever did that, it tells me there's somebody at Fox that's starting to pay attention a little bit. It's not perfect. It's not all the way where it needs to be, but I'll tell you this, between this and Eric Brennan being involved in more of the Truck Series broadcasts coming up this year, not all of them, but an extent of them, I'm very excited about that. I cannot wait. He's been fantastic for ARCA. And I'm not the only one that's been singing his praises. I think it was Elite Precision and LE Productions and others have been talking him up too, and deservedly so. He does a fantastic job, and I love seeing that he's getting the respect that he should get. He should get the opportunities he should get, because he really does make these stories come alive. So that's good to see too. You know, I think for all the struggles that Fox has had and just broadcasts that just have not been very good, they're starting to get things right. Now, not everything is perfect. They certainly need to pull the camera back. I don't get how you can have a race at a quarter mile and have the camera zoomed in so close that you can't react to things when they're happening. There were so many times that Mike Joy was describing something that was happening on the track and we didn't get to see it until after it happened, or they didn't have a replay, or we're looking at this and we're hearing about something else. And and we didn't have a camera moved far enough back to actually take in what was going on. Because I'm sure in this race, there was way more going on than we could actually see, and way more than you could see from way up close. And then all these quick cuts, you know, no producer is going to be able to be quick enough to catch all that action. So you got to pull the camera back, and, you know, you can mix it up. You can have some onboards. You can do that. But the production needs to have that variety in it. And that's the part that's still lacking here. You saw Harris Liu talk about it. You saw other people bringing it up. That needs to be worked on, and hopefully the sport gets there too. But I think that's another one. Yeah, I like when Mike Joy asked about breakfast. Yeah, that was good too, Jude Fernandez. Yeah, same thing. And Mike Joy, bringing it to him. You know, obviously getting a bit older, he could hear it in his voice, but I thought he was solid in this. I think, you know, it was there wasn't really like a supreme moment that really tied things together, but he was solid. He didn't take away from it. Again, I've always been a big fan of Mike Joy in the booth, so I can't be entirely impartial there. But I do think this was better than his worst broadcast. I think he was not to that level. And so he did seem rejuvenated. He did seem interested in what was happening out there and was trying to track it as best he could. So I don't have too many notes on him in general there too. But yeah, just a little bit of everything there at the same time. So I think we looked at the results here. We talked about the last place battle. Bubba Wallace again, last place finish in this race here. 2 times in a row that Toyota's finished last in the Clash of Bowman Gray. Last year, of course, was Chase Briscoe, and this time Bubba Wallace. So we'll see what happens there too. But everybody finishing under power at the same time. So a different scenario there too. Let's see here. Oh, kudos. Speaking of Harris Liu, kudos to him on that Valvoline paint scheme. I guess we could talk about some of the paint schemes in this race here too. Harris Liu's job on the Valvoline car looked really, really good. I'm seeing a comment here on social media. Mark Martin was retweeting this as well about how much he liked the scheme based on the 1997 scheme, that beautiful Valvoline sweep, taking the logo, kind of spreading it over the side of the car, and kind of adding a new spin to it there with the new body style of the current car. I think that one looked really nice, especially since Byron has historically had some really crap paint schemes the last couple of years. I really didn't like the white Exalta scheme. I thought that one was ugly. I kind of liked some of the Raptor ones. I didn't mind those as much. Those are probably the best ones, but all the other ones have just been awful. But I think this was another one there too. Yeah, mentioning the Connor Zilich one there, Jude Fernandez. Yeah, same thing. Love the Trackhouse schemes. Those looked really good. Specifically the ones on Zilich and Shane Van Gisbergen. Spinoffs of the ones that we saw last year with Chastain and Van Gisbergen then. Those looked really nice. I like the Austin Dillon one. The silver on the car actually looks pretty good, which is something to say given the fact that, of course, these are wraps and they're not painted, so it doesn't look exactly like the 2006 Kevin Harvick one, but it's a damn good duplicate. Some good schemes. I'll be excited to see what we get Daytona. Is Bubba Wallace going to run Hardee's there? Lastbro is counting down to seeing the Hardee's paint scheme on the 23. I think that's going to be really cool because that brand is always, whether you go the Russ Wheeler direction or you go the Cale Yarborough direction or you go the Ward Burton direction or something entirely new. I know he's very excited about that. So, and I share that excitement because that brand, those schemes have always really stood out. Even Yarborough's, being as simple as it was, just that red and white, it still looks great. It still looks great. And it's made a good throwback scheme the last couple of years too. So, yeah, kind of those elements there at the same time. Let's see. Let me go into some of my other notes here. Okay, yeah, I talked about that one already. Eric Brennan and Brent Stover. That was the other name I was forgetting. Brent Stover being a part of the Truck Series play-by-play this year. Again, very excited about that. I think that's going to be really, really interesting and get some, breathe some new life into that, especially the Truck Series. There's so many interesting drivers out there and interesting stories that develop. Shout out to Stephen Malazzi as well. You may have seen my video posted earlier this week. Stephen trying to get a ride with the Ram effort. The colleague team to get a one-off start here sometime this year. Was happy to share a few words there, remembering about his race at Rockingham last year. I was going to go even further into it there. I didn't want to make the clip too long, but him psyching up the crowd before the race was good, especially given how excited that crowd already was. And then also him getting back in Josh Realm's truck there and driving it around. I mean, he had mechanical issues. He still got back out there. I was running some laps in the garage area to get it ready and get back out there. That was good to see. The guy's just determined to race, and he's not the only one. I do some of these PR things here and there. I don't want to make it seem like I'm only doing it for just one or two drivers out there. There's a lot of these developing drivers that I'm very much big, supporters of, and others I haven't done anything for yet, really. That I'm also very excited about seeing work their way up the ranks. Of course, we've done the sponsorship with Norm Benning, of course, more of a veteran driver, but in terms of up and coming drivers with Brad Perez, We had that great podcast last year with Mason Maggio, and Stephen Malazzi was on that one, and Josh Balicki as well. Other drivers we always just run into from time to time. We had that great interview with JJ Yaley last year. All three series have some really interesting stories, and it's great to be able to share those. And I anticipate doing more of that this year for you guys as well. One story coming up here, the Flying Scotsman Dario Franchitti coming back to compete in the Truck Series race at St. Petersburg. That is very exciting, very unexpected. Years after that harrowing wreck at, what was that, Houston, that ended his career at IndyCar. Just wonderful to see him involved in racing in any way he can. We saw the footage earlier this year of him at the vintage races back over in England, and competing there with Jimmy Johnson and other competitors out there. And now him racing in NASCAR. First time in the Truck Series since, 2007? Great deal there for him, and hopefully he has a good time competing at a track where he had turned many laps in IndyCar, of course, being able to compete out there. So that's really wonderful. Good to see drivers that are able to be a part of the event. That's something I've always I've started, not always, but something I've kind of started to chew over about the All-Star race. Talked about that a little bit at the top of the show here. One thing I think will make the All-Star race more special is if it brought in returning drivers that were veteran drivers, and have that element, rather than finding more ways to get people from the Winston Open or, the All-Star Open these days into the main event, which I get, you got people there. Finding ways to get, people that are locked in, again, maybe, work out some deal with these teams. That's the tricky part. How are they going to get extra entries or anything? In NASCAR not being able to enter their own cars or anything like that. But getting guys in there, just like anybody. Anybody that would still be able to do it, that'd be great. Even if it was just a guy like Jimmy Johnson that's already doing like a part-time schedule, that would be cool. Maybe from the event hopping to these different venues. Certainly at Dover, I can imagine, putting Jimmy Johnson in that race, even with this car, is probably somebody you'd still want to watch in that one. So I don't know, get somebody like Tony Stewart back out there, like we're seeing in the Truck Series race coming up, or Dale Earnhardt Jr. or Matt Kenseth or any of these guys, something like that, where it's a true all-star race where you have the best names of the current active drivers and the best names from, the recent history. In the past, we've had races where, those races tend to be much, much slower tracks. The Winston Legends race in 91, the unfortunately short-lived event at Bristol there, where they had the throwback race with Rick Wilson and Larry Pearson and drivers like that in there. Especially now where, the Hall of Fame is starting to bring in drivers like Harry Gant and stuff in there. That would be really interesting to see. But I don't know how that would work. That would be kind of tricky, but again, thinking outside the box a little bit and making that event more special again. And, bringing guys like that out. There's some that if you had it at a slow enough track, you don't have to worry about the safety element as much. It wouldn't be the same as making them go out there at Charlotte if they haven't raced in years. Obviously, there's other logistics you'd have to concern about. We saw the same issues at Bristol. No track is entirely safe either, but again, something closer to maybe like a Winston Legends or something like that. Maybe the Clash could turn into that. Who knows? But that's something else to kind of look at. Also, in terms of the schedule, this being made official, just leading into this race here, the Charlotte Roval is gone, and the Charlotte Oval is back, at least for now, from the this being confirmed from the interview on, interview on Dale Jr.'s podcast there earlier this week, which is kind of strange. It sounded like it was pretty much confirmed more than a week ago, but I guess, I don't know, some of these stories get leaked a bit quicker. Honestly, to me, good riddance. I've never been a big fan of the Roval. I jumped into it just as much as everybody else did back in 2018 when we were just starved for any kind of bonus road course racing, and it just felt like, we couldn't really go to any other kind of tracks or anything like that. The story of the Roval was more complicated than that, but it boiled down to that at the same time. They weren't going to pull that race out of Charlotte and send it to Lime Rock or an actual road course. They had to do it there. It was a compromise. And not every I'm getting really tired of compromise because a lot of these compromises don't really work out very well. And again, I think a lot of the best moments of that track were because it was such a mess. whether it was that, that caution that didn't come out for Chase Elliott with the bumper hanging off of it, all these stop and go penalties that screwed up the playoff system, and it being a relic of the playoff system. It's amazing. The playoffs go away and poof, it just disappears, and we're back to racing on the oval again. See what I'm saying about big issues that can take away several other small issues? You don't have to fix 6 things. You need to find the one big thing that fixes all 6 of them. And that's kind of, I think maybe that was, this playoff system was a good start towards that. I think the fall Charlotte race is entertaining. I think this car, certainly the Cup Series, is very well suited to the Charlotte Motor Speedway, and having another one of those races in the fall instead of just some stupid obstacle course there is better. But I'm sure there's going to be a time, another year or so from now, that everybody's going to be whinging about, oh, the Roval was so good, man, you didn't understand it. Yeah, no, I'm not buying that right off here. I'm sure there's some drivers that preferred it. I'm sure AJ Allmendinger isn't happy to see it go away. I'm sure Shane Van Gisbergen isn't happy to see it go away, having just figured it out. But at the same time, I would rather see, should there be a road course in that portion of the schedule? Sure. Especially when the weather gets more unpredictable, and especially, hopefully, if we get back to a full season championship, yeah. Does it have to be one of the ones we have right now? Not necessarily. Maybe you could be Lime Rock and move it, back to that time of year. I think Watkins Glen and Sears Point in the summer is fine. Hopefully Sears Point gets an opportunity as spring date, although I'm hearing a lot of reasons why that's not going to happen. Certainly the weather out here, that was one of the factors that was an issue with the Clash. Of course, we always have that one weekend of just torrential rainfall in LA every February, and it just happened to be that weekend, that last time. You'd have similar issues here at Sears Point if that race got moved to like February or March. We had some success with it in May. Maybe that would be an option, but we'll find out if that's going to be the case there too. So we'll see if that's going to be there too. Oh yeah, Jimmy Q7. I see your comment there on Greg Sachs. Yeah, another Hardee's paint scheme. I'd forgotten about that. Yeah, that was a good one too. A bit simpler than the other ones, but not bad. A Harry Rainier deal, blue and white with the red roof and the yellow numbers. Yeah, it looked good. So that's another one to look at there too. Looking at other notes here too. I want to thank again both. I want to give a shout out to both my staff writers, William Saki and Ben Schneider there as well. William Saki is no longer writing regularly for the site. He has now moved on to a new job, and I'm very happy to hear that he's very happy with that job and working his way up. He was a very good writer there for the site. He was the first person I've hired at lastcar.info. And I'm happy to see him take the next step in his career. And again, as I said to him, doors always open on that there, and wish him the best of luck there. He's written for the site for the last 8 years. So again, most recently covering the IndyCar series there for the site. As of this moment, there's no plans to really refill his position at the point. And that was really the thing. When William reached out to me, I wasn't really even looking to hire writers for the site. But I'm so glad I did, because he was a great contributor to the site, and I'm sure for his current job, he's going to be a tremendous contributor there as well. And I also want to send some well wishes to my other staff writer, Ben Schneider, who is staying with the site this year. He's covered the ARCA series there before. He's been going through some things here as well. But I'm very thankful that he's staying with the site here as well. But I know he's been dealing with some things as well. So just wishing him the best on that as we see him here too. So yeah, so we're kind of, it's kind of a bit of changes here this year. But again, myself and Ben this year will be continuing to produce content there for the lastcar.info site, and you'll see more of that down the line here too. I want to give thanks as well to my Patreon members, including those of you who have joined since the next 500 days advance access happened this last week. I want to make sure everybody had plenty of time to check it out before it goes live on February 9th. That's in 5 days from now. I just recently actually re-uploaded the video because I had an issue with the copyright, or the license rather, to one of the music tracks on there. There was a miscommunication with YouTube, so I'm getting that worked out. Hopefully, knock on wood, that gets worked out between now and the 9th. But I'm glad I set the release date far enough away to get that straightened out. I'm optimistic that that'll get cleared up there. because this was a very interesting episode. Talk about the 2001 Spring Talladega race, also covers the first Nashville Busch Series race, and that'll be featured in there. So look forward to that. That premiere will be again next Monday, February 9th. I believe it's going to be about 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern. I haven't announced that yet, but that's kind of what I'm thinking of. So it's not too late, even on the East Coast. And also, I have to make sure it's scheduled in such a way that I'm able to be in the chat room there after work on the West Coast here. So I think that'll probably accomplish that, but I'll announce that a bit closer to the date. Also, this week, there's going to be another live stream this Saturday. I want to give a big shout out to Joe Laricente over at Doorstop Nation, who has sponsored a stream of the 2011 Daytona 500, the 15th anniversary of this. You may wonder why do this particular stream. Of course, Daytona 500 coming up here in a couple of weeks, but this particular race saw Joe and his website, doorstopnation.com, featured as a sponsor on David Gilliland's car, which had a very good finish in that race, and that will be one of the storylines we'll cover. So if you want a race watch along, I know I haven't done one of those in a little while, but this will be a good opportunity for that. That is going to be this Saturday, February 7th. That'll be the day before the Super Bowl. And this will be in the early afternoon. I believe it's about 1 o'clock Pacific, 4 o'clock Eastern. There's more details on that on my Twitter page. Actually, I can confirm that here because I have it in my pinned post. Yes, 4 Eastern, 1 Pacific on that. And that will be the next live stream after today. So going to be some more streams between now and Daytona. I'm still looking to do another stream after the duels next Thursday. However, there is going to be that Dale Earnhardt documentary. So it'll likely be after that airs. So we'll kind of play it by ear. If it feels timely or feels like not, we can still do it, or you can push it till Sunday. I'm not sure. We'll kind of figure it out. But that's kind of what I'm thinking of doing that week as well. Let's see here. Yeah, I'm seeing Marcus Hurtado. See your comment there about the Roval. Yeah, I mean, mixed feelings there for sure. But that'll be another one there. Oh, Marcus, I'm glad you like the quilt here as well. Yep, this is one of my mother's quilts here. She has we have them on all the walls here at LASCAR headquarters. You can see some of the other ones here. We got our NASCAR one here on this side, and then we got the circus one on this side here. So yeah, we got those all decorated in here. That she is very talented with that. Does a wonderful job on those. So I'm definitely glad that we got good lighting and a good camera here to show that off here as well. Let's see. I do not have Badger with me though. He was getting a bit anxious during the race. See, the race went on so long, he even got to the point where he needed to get some air. So that was kind of the other part of it. Also, big thanks to those of you in the Patreon, patreon.com/LASCARonBrock. I did send out the envelopes here earlier this month with the newsletter and the yearly sticker exclusive to Patreon members. So if you join it as little as $1 in that level, and any year, you get the sticker for that year, and I send those out. I always enjoy doing that. And I threw in a little bonus this year with pictures from my senior year, or last year, as somebody brought up there on Twitter there, because it would be 25 years since 2001. That was the year I graduated high school. And as part of the 500 days deal, I figured it would be interesting to show you what I looked like back when 500 days was happening live. So a little bit of a bonus there at the same time. So, yeah. And again, if you're interested in joining the Patreon, I'll still have those available, both the pictures and the stickers and the newsletters for you guys there at the same time. So that's about all the notes I have here on my phone. So I have that there at the same time. Again, I apologize for sounding a little congested tonight, but we'll do some more here. I'm going to get some water here, and then we will do some trivia, and I got some show and tell here for you guys, and we'll wrap up the show here for this evening. So just one moment here. I'm going to put the mute on for just a moment. Okay. All right. So, let's see. I'm kind of thinking that the inspection was probably going to take way less time on this one. Coming up there. And I'm just seeing some other interviews posted by Pockrass here a few minutes ago. My goodness, just looks cold. Just looking at these faces here. Oh, here it is. Yep, 43 minutes ago. Tech complete, all clear. Preece is the winner. This being 43 minutes ago on Bob Pockrass's page. So yes, no, yeah, inspection did not take very long at all. So again, congratulations to Ryan Preece on a tremendous victory here in the Clash. And I'm sure everybody heading back to the warmth of their headquarters here as we get ready for Daytona here very shortly. Okay. So with that, yes, it will be a Bubba Wallace article on the site. We'll do some trivia questions here and wrap up. Oh, yes, and there are 2 super chats. Yes, thank you, big all caps. Thank you very much. I will jump into those. I'll do that as well after I put the categories out here for you guys. We'll do a couple trivia questions, super chats, and show and tell to wrap up the show tonight. So again, we'll bring out the late 90s deal here, a little closer to the camera so you can see the text on there a little better. Hopefully it's not out of focus. There you go. Let me know if this is too close to my face here. I didn't like having it before where I just like look like I'm a beached whale here with the camera way back. So I wanted to kind of do something that looks a little better on screen. But we're still playing with it. I had a great setup when we went to Rockingham, and I've been trying to match it ever since. And I've tried different control arms, different cameras, different lighting, and I haven't quite been able to match it. I think the closest I came was at Sears Point. I was very happy with how that one looked, and I hope I can replicate it this next season. So we'll see. So, again, the categories here, NASCAR, pits, teams, tracks, drivers, and the wild card. Those are your categories. NASCAR, pits, teams, tracks, drivers, and the wild card. Those are your categories. Alrighty. Let's see here. And yes, let me go ahead and do the super chats here as well. Joshua P. Boston, 1999 for $20. Goodness, thank you, Joshua there. I see your super chat on this. Go ahead and mention the chat which of those categories you like, and we'll do those here in the meantime. I have had it, says Joshua. Between the delay, Mike Bagley not being with MRN, and the embarrassment we saw tonight, I don't know which to be more upset about. I think it's past time for the Clash to die off in the past forever. 2 out of 10, F-. You know, I get it. I don't disagree with you there. You know, I think there are, I think everybody, no matter how they feel about it, they have questions about what the future of the Clash is. And I think it should be fair to expand it into exhibition races in general. What should they be? I think the Clash is probably a closer example than the All-Star race of what it should be. It should feature a special track that's not necessarily conducive to, doing full races. I still feel like Atlanta fits into that because it's just a circus, but that's just me. But, same thing could apply to an international race. Having it, Mexico City could have been an exhibition instead of a points-paying race. Again, we've had races in Australia, Japan, same kind of thing. I think it's worth having some questions about what the future of the sport is. What's the relevance of it? And it shouldn't be just something we do just because we've done. As much as I like tradition, as much as I like certain rhythm to the season and some similar things, and I like that there's a lot of things that do scratch that itch, that we have Wilkesboro, that we have Rockingham, that we have Daytona still starting off the season in terms of points-paying races. I like that all those elements are there. And I like that we have some new venues to look forward to. I'm intrigued by the San Diego race. I'm intrigued by St. Petersburg. We'll see what happens in those places as well. But yeah, I do think I can see where you're coming from about the Clash running its course. And maybe that's the case. Maybe it no longer is the thing that starts the year off. Maybe we just start the year off with Daytona and that's it. And maybe we don't do this. Or maybe we have a 20-lap sprint at Daytona and we just start over in terms of reinventing it. And it becomes part of Daytona in that sense. And that it doesn't have to be a standalone event. That it can be a shorter race that just happens to be, a sprint and that's it. Maybe that's the direction we go. I don't know. But I think it's worth discussing. I think I can see where people aren't satisfied with it here. I do think a lot of this was extreme. I think this was an extreme circumstance, but I do think some of it was somewhat foreseeable because it is so early in the year. It is so long before Daytona, and it involves so much of the field with these cars. Is this really the best way to feature Bowman Gray? No, I don't think it is. I don't think it is. And so maybe that's another way to look at it. Let's see. Oh yeah, RUSE 3D586. Thank you for your super chat for $10. Thank you very much. Hi. Despite all the setbacks, I actually enjoyed this race between Hocevar, Preece, and the road course duo. Who are your ones to watch this season? Love your work and keep being cool. Well, thank you. Thank you very much. I'm very flattered. I appreciate it. Yeah, no, I'm with you. And again, see, this is the other side of the coin there perfectly. You could have a race like this that's completely crazy and off the wall and features the Madhouse for what it is and the weather throwing everything into it. But hey, damn the torpedoes. They got it in, they got it done. And I can see if you really enjoyed it, great. I certainly don't want to take away from that. And I'm very happy with Preece in Victory Lane. And to answer your other question, yeah, he might be the one you have to watch. Roush, Fenway, Keselowski, they could be really strong at Daytona. Doesn't mean it's necessarily because of this race, but maybe in terms of adjusting to different conditions, and with all the unpredictability of this race and being able to come out on top and actually pull off the win, nobody backed into anything here. They had to absolutely take it. And that was not easy. That was not easy for anybody in this field there. So yeah, he could be one you have to watch. And Hocevar, certainly, one to watch from last year, came close many times. Is this going to be the start of something like Ty Gibbs, where they're still looking for a win a few years later? Or is this going to be the breakout year where he gets several wins? It could very easily happen. I liked his aggression in this race. He could have won this one. Again, it was a toss-up. Zilich, I'm very excited about. I think that, he's going to be, so much fun to watch this year. He seems like he's figured out this car pretty well. We're really not going to get a good sense of that until we see him on, multiple other tracks. His runs in the 87 car were very few. Of course, he had the injury at Watkins Glen that kept him from running that race. He had the wreck at Dakota that kept him from reaching the finish there. When we start seeing him finish races and see where he finishes, that's going to be fun. But we don't have a big enough sample yet, but we're getting closer to it, and I think we're going to see that very soon. But yes, thank you very much for your super chat. I definitely, I share your excitement over the new talent this series. It's interesting. We didn't see a lot of different drivers and teams change. Not a lot of new teams in the sport, but I think it's going to be really, really interesting to see. Let's see here. And, and there we go. Mr. Bad Guy 51, thank you for your super chat for $5. Thank you very much. Race was whatever, but Preece is one of those drivers that make NASCAR worth watching. Happy he got a trophy today. Yes, absolutely agree there too. And see, again, you could be really into this race. You could be like, this is the worst thing ever. Or you could be right in the middle here, like Mr. Bad Guy here. Again, it could be, a situation where it's, you're across the board. But I do think because of these very different viewpoints, I think we're well in position where, we're going to have a good discussion about where this needs to go. And yeah, what we need to do with this race. And I think it should expand into what the future is of exhibition races. And I've belabored that point tonight, but I appreciate you guys sharing your viewpoints as well, because that demonstrates, again, it's not an all or one issue. Everybody is all over the place on this. And, what could be great for one person is terrible for another person. But there's a lot to be looked at. And hopefully we get to that point there too. Let's see. But again, thank you very much for the super chats there as well. Where are we with the categories? I just see one for tracks and one for drivers. Who do I have in the Super Bowl? Nick Rowdy 1276. Yeah. I don't know. No, actually, that's not true. That would be incorrect. When the Bills don't make the Super Bowl, and yeah, you better believe I'm still not happy about that, and I'm also not happy about pretty much everything that's happened after that. I go full NFC. I don't want to go for anybody in the AFC, so I'm sure as hell not going for the New England Patriots. No. My prediction, 62-7 Seahawks. That would be great. I would love to just see them just get obliterated. if I want to, if when the Chiefs made it, when any of those made it, it's like last year's game when the Eagles just trounced the Chiefs. I think they should show that every Christmas. I thought that was great. I thought that was wonderful. Jalen Hurts, I always have a little bit of respect for him. I know they fell short this year, but stuff happens. Yeah. No. I football is not my expertise, so I feel perfectly comfortable being as partisan as I could possibly be when it comes to the NFL. So yeah, if the Bills don't make it, and yeah, I get it. And everybody's, same people are coming out. Oh, look at that. They're never going to make it. Oh, they're never going to make it. Oh, and the only people I've heard that complained about Coach McDermott are people that aren't Bills fans. Everybody else is like, all the other casual Monday morning quarterbacks out there that are fans of this team or that team. They're like, oh yeah, get rid of him. It's like, okay, well, look, he wasn't the right scapegoat there. There's definitely people that deserved criticism there. And yeah, it sucks. It sucks. And I feel bad for Josh Allen. I feel bad for his teammates there. Yeah, he struggled there the first half, but I said it on Twitter. I didn't really feel, compared to the other losses in these last few years, I've only been following him since 2012, so I can't comment on the 4 straight Super Bowl losses. But I can comment on the otherwise trajectory since 2012. When they got Tyrod Taylor, when they broke the losing streak there in getting into the playoffs, and when they've now got Josh Allen and now get closer and closer, but just have one thing or another happen. Of all those losses in that time, and they've been bad, the 13 seconds, all those other games there. This one here, I'm honestly not as upset about. I'm not happy that they missed, of course. I'm not going to sugarcoat this and be like, oh, golly gee, they did their best. It's like, no, they played like crap in the first half. I didn't even watch the first half of it because I knew they were going to play bad the first half. It seems like they always keep doing that. But in the second half, they got right back in it. They forced it into overtime. They forced a 3-and-out for the Broncos. And then it just didn't go right. It just didn't go right at that point. But you know what? Everything else, you can't keep it close. You keep it close, and those rulings by the referees are going to happen. You keep it close, you result in things out of your control end up being the factor, and that's what they can't do. Next time they got to go through like a bulldozer and just knock everything down, and that's the end of it. But hopefully they will. They didn't this year, but hopefully they will. I have faith that they will. But again, that's why you watch. That's why you watch. But full NFC, full Seahawks for this year, for sure. So I am A-okay with that. So we'll see. I think I only had 2 votes here for this year. Tracks and drivers. I'll go ahead and do tracks there as well. If you're interested in hats here like this for lastcard.info, I just put some new ones in the store. Go to lastcard.info and click the store link at the top. You'll get that as well. I added some more stuff from around here, including some DVDs from the DVD shelf here behind me. You had a couple duplicates of DVDs on there, and I went ahead and just said, I was going to just give them away, but I'm like, you know what? Maybe, I don't know if anybody wants these or not. But I just put them up for like $5 if anybody wants them. But you'll see that in the store there as well. But we'll do a couple tracks questions, and then I'll do the show and tell as we wind down here. And then I will get some nose spray after this because I can tell I'm sounding a little off here. Let's see. Tracks. Alrighty. First question. What track is known for producing luck in its Irish hills? What track is known for producing luck in its Irish hills is the first question. And while we have that, here is the show and tell for today. As you may have recalled, I picked up that Kenny Irwin shirt from the Days Gone By apparel thing. So again, big thanks to him. Also picked up the Ricky Craven crew uniform shirts here these last couple of days. I couldn't resist. Those are just really, really cool. And added those to the collection there. So if you haven't seen pictures of those, I shared those on there. I thought about bringing those on here for the show and tell today, but I decided to bring out what Brent Wentz threw in there, a deck of these trading cards from 1991, and we'll see which cards we get. I wonder, with this camera, if I could do a flat here and show it down here. Can I do that? I wonder if this will work. Let me try this. I'll put it here. Yeah, maybe I can. Let's see. All right. So that way you can see. Okay, gonna show it on the camera. Okay, it's upside down. We'll try it this way. And yeah, as you guys guess the first trivia question, we'll go ahead and open this up and we'll see which ones we have in here. I'd like to give away these cards to Patreon members as well. So you may well see these if you're a new member. So let's find out what we got. All right. See Darlington on this one. Okay, looks like we got a scratcher here, first of all. Completion date. I'm sure it's 1992 or... There we go, December 31st, 1991. So yeah, a little bit old there, but got that. Oh, let's see. We got our friend Butch Miller here. Driver the number 98 for Travis Carter Enterprises. Got him on there, the banquet frozen food scheme there after Rick Mast, but before Jimmy Spencer. So the 1990 season chronicled here as well. We have the great Dale Inman showed on here, working on the King's car here, the number 43 Pontiac. Seeing him around as well. He over at the Petty compound that year. So, of course, the famous crew chief, 8-time Cup champion, correct? From the also working with Dale Earnhardt. Or was that Earnhardt or was it? Yeah, I thought it was, because I know Doug Richard was his crew chief in 1980. Where was that? Or no, maybe it was a different team. Okay, if you know it in the chat, that'll be our other trivia question. But yeah, Dale Inman's 8th championship there. Besides working with the King there, he worked with somebody. Was it was it Terry Labonte's crew in '84? I think it might have been. Try to remember. You guys know ball. I see you guys already got the trivia question is right, so we got that too. Here we go. Here is a picture of Rusty Wallace winning the second ever Sears Point race in 1990. One of only 2 races he won that year. The last win for Blue Max Racing before they shut down. There was an interesting video that NASCAR Classics posted that showed that team scaling back before the end of the year. They blew an engine and finished last at the Southern 500 that year, I believe. And this was a stretch run there for them. So we got the Sears Point victory there commemorated there. We also have what looks to be Jeff Bodine winning at Pocono. I think this was another race that NASCAR Classics aired. Some clips from there too. Somebody was posting it. Terry Labonte. Okay, yeah, thank you. Big all caps. There you go. That would make sense because, yeah, that was the year that, Petty won his last couple races with Mike Curbs. That makes more sense. Look at this. You got Peter Suspenzo, future crew chief, as a driver in this one. Is he an ARCA driver in this one? Looks like it. Yeah, look at that. Peter Suspenzo. I'm trying to remember. Yeah. What's car did he drive? Like to be a world famous crew chief or just an average driver, which is what Peter chose. Another owner quoting this here as well. So I heard that Humpy Wheeler once asked Peter whether he would like to be a world famous crew chief or just an average driver, which is what Peter chose. Am I thinking of that one right? Is the crew chief, or was it David Suspenzo? I thought it was Peter Suspenzo. But there you go. Dave Bader III. Is he still active at ARCA? So there's another one too. Always had some interesting paint schemes. Always very much like the 65 car he ran with the Jasper branding. So that's pretty cool. So Dave Bader on that one. We got, looks like Ryan Pemberton or Robin Pemberton? Robin Pemberton as crew chief of the year, working with Mark Martin. We got team owner Richard Jackson, owner of the Skull Classic entry that Terry Labonte drove in 1990. Rick Mast 91 got the Magic Market logo on his shirt, the branding that was always on the cars back then. Here's an interesting one. Here's owner Bob Tullius, owner of Group 44. This is a team that showed up in one of my other videos. Actually, I think in 2 videos I'm working on here. I haven't done one on his team specifically, but yeah, he is a sports car owner that fielded cars there as well. So yeah, it's an interesting one there. So that's one that's a bit more obscure. Mike McLaughlin, who got Magic Shoes here. He will figure in the next episode of 500 Days coming up next week. You will see exactly how very soon. Fan favorite driver Darrell Waltrip. Things definitely turned the corner after his spin off the nose of Rusty Wallace in the Winston and won most popular driver that year. So this, actually, this is 1990, so this will be the year after it. Probably also well wishes after his injury at Daytona that year. Did he get it both years? I know he got it at 80. I know he got it 89 after the spin, but did he get it 90 as well? Yeah, second straight year. Fans' favorite driver, excuse me. So there you go. Then, of course, this one needs no introduction. Derek Cope winning the 1990 Daytona 500. So again, a famous moment there for sure, chronicling his upset win in that race. We also have Ernie Irvan winning his first race at the Bristol Night Race and the first win for Morgan McClure Motorsports. This chronicled here as well. Oh, we got the hits in this one. This is a good pack. We got Jeff Bodine winning at Martinsville. Of course, the track that he was so good with the modified circuit. And then last but not least, Dale Earnhardt looks like winning at Darlington in the spring race in the Trans-South 500. So good collection there. So again, big thanks to Brent for sending that one there. And again, if you joined the Patreon, you may see this in your envelope as well. I like to throw in some cards there where I can. I'm glad this camera worked. That was a good experiment there with that. Okay, let's make sure it's in focus. Oh, that's still not in focus. Let's try that again. We good? There we go. Don't want to give anybody a headache. Alrighty. What track is known for producing luck in its Irish hills? The answer is indeed Michigan. You guys got it. You guys knew that was right. Yep. All right. Alrighty. So I'm going to just do one more question here because this show's kind of run kind of long here, but we'll do one more question here and wrap up here for tonight. So here we go. Last question for the evening, folks. What was the first track to be topped with polymer enhanced asphalt? Don't look it up. Try to guess it here. What was the first track to be topped with, polymer enhanced asphalt? That is the question. What was the first track to be topped with polymer enhanced asphalt? I'll give you guys some more time to guess that one as well. There we go. Let's see. Daytona, Richmond, New Hampshire, Bristol. Alrighty. What was the first track to be topped with polymer enhanced asphalt? Last question for the evening. Get your picks in. We'll wrap up with that. It would make sense that means PJ1 to be either Texas or Bristol. Yeah, they do. They do use that a lot. They've definitely been taxing that for sure. What was the first track to be topped with polymer enhanced asphalt? The answer is, again, Michigan. Michigan. Same thing as the Irish Hills. Michigan. I don't think anybody got that. Group 44. Did I misspeak, Jimmy? I thought I said Group 44. Did I say Team 44 or something? I meant to say Group 44 for the Pontiac team, Bob Tolias's team. Yeah, Michigan. Yeah, I didn't know that either. I didn't know it had polymer enhanced asphalt. I guess it makes sense for the speed, I suppose. I don't know. Maybe that's not how that worked out. But there you go. Alrighty. Yeah, polymer enhanced asphalt. So there's one to keep in mind there if you're ever in a NASCAR trivia game there as well. That'll be another one to throw into the mix. So tell you what, folks, I'm going to wrap up here for tonight. But thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. Congratulations to Ryan Preece on a tremendous win tonight in the very, very difficult and very, very long Cookout Clash at Bowman Gray Stadium there. Congratulations to him for the win. The article later on tonight will be on Bubba Wallace and his last place finish. As always, the website, lastcar.info, the Patreon, patreon.com/lastcaronbrock, and my Twitter @lastcaronbrock to check out more bonus content here. Next stream is going to be this Saturday. That's going to be the sponsored stream about the 2011 Daytona 500. We'll do a watch along that afternoon there, so if you feel free to tune in that day if you would like to check that out. And then we'll get started on Daytona coverage in proper the week after that. And beginning that week will be, of course, February 9th and the release of the next episode of 500 Days, which, again, is a very long episode, almost 4 hours long. It is going to have an intermission in it really the halfway point of the story, about an hour and a half into it there. So that'll be something that'll be helpful for the live watch along for sure. But of course, that'll be publicly available and people can watch it at their own speed too. So a lot of exciting stuff coming up, and it's going to be an exciting 2026 season. A very interesting way to start it here with this event. And hey, we're going to find out what happens here very soon. So have a great evening, everyone. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. And I'll see you all next time.